Alright, today we start off OakWood Zoo Season 3 by adding 2 more animals to the desert house that we started in the last season. And those are, number 1, the meerkats, but more importantly, one of my favorite animals in the entire game, the African Crested Porcupine. So I am very excited, and let's get right into it. Alright, so hello everybody, and welcome to a very exciting episode today. This is, again, like I said, this is the first episode of OakWood Zoo Season 3. We have done all this stuff. I released the America's Pavilion online, or on the Steam Workshop, about 2 weeks ago, and then the week following that, I released the OakWood Zoo Season 2, like actually the entire zoo, on the workshop, so you can download everything that we have built so far on the Steam Workshop, including it. I think that I went the extra mile, and all that, like that save file of OakWood Zoo Season 2 has all the animals in it, so I went through like getting staff back and putting all the animals back and taking the save file or whatever, like uploading it to the Steam Workshop and then removing them all. I guess I don't think I removed them all, I just like didn't save that file, and then I went to a file that doesn't have the animals, so thankfully that was a bit more easier on me. But today we are back in the building mood, and again we have already gone over all of the different like plans and stuff. If you want to see that, if you want to see like the plans and stuff, number 1, I posted, well, and if you go to the tour, if you go to the update tour of Season 2 and you go to the end of that video, like the last 10 minutes, we do I don't know, a pretty decent short recap. You don't have to watch the tour or anything. I'm not gonna spoil, I'm not gonna like waste your time, but in the last 10 minutes of that video we go over all the plans for Season 3. It's pretty compact, but if you want to save even more time than that and don't want to like watch it for like 10 minutes, you can go to the community post or the community tab in the channel, and there I have posted recently somewhere the creature wish list, I guess, for Season 3, which features, I believe, all 15 animals that we will be including in Season 3. Now, there won't be 15 episodes. Maybe there will, actually, I don't know. But basically, there are certain animals that are going to be going together in enclosures, so really, those 2 animals will be in one episode, just like we have today with our starting episode of Season 3, the porcupines and meerkats. And I really love this combo. I know they don't get species enrichment bonus in the game, but my local zoo does this and like puts them together. And they honestly, even though it's a combination that you don't often really, maybe you don't have to season zoos, but maybe it's one you don't really expect that much, because you figure like, the cute little tiny meerkats are going to be scared of the porcupine, or the porcupine is going to like scare them off, or it's going to be too dangerous for them. But honestly, with my local zoo and what I've seen, and I've gone there for like very many years, and I'm like, this is one of my favorite areas to be in the zoo. But it's interesting because the meerkats are not nocturnal, so they're going to be active throughout the day, but the porcupine is nocturnal, so it's going to be sleeping. And you often see the porcupine is always sleeping in the day, which makes sense. It has like that little log and stuff in its little den. And then you have the meerkats that are running around the tunnels and everything, and that's what I really tried to do with this enclosure in this area, because I wanted to give the porcupine its own space. This combo can work if you just give each animal enough space, because they should only be active in a certain time of the day. Porcupines are active at night, meerkats are active in the day, so they shouldn't really overlap that much. But either way, I think this can work, and I did want to take that idea a bit further. So what I have done with this enclosure, which I think was kind of unique, is in the inside enclosure, you have an area for just both the porcupines and the meerkats. You have a little den, you have like a cave system in the back, which is also where the enclosure connects to the backstage, the actual backstage area. But then you also have that area connects to 2 outside rooms. One, which is in the aviary, like the mesh netting area, which is for both the porcupines and the meerkats. But there is also a smaller doorway to another room, which only the meerkats can fit through. So I found that kind of interesting, and I found that like kind of like a cool way to do it, so that the meerkats have their own space, that even if they are disrupting the porcupine or anything, that they can, I guess they can go to somewhere else, and the porcupine can go to its own room. So it's kind of like splitting them up. They're bad siblings or whatever, like they're like aren't like arguing siblings, that they just go to separate rooms of the enclosure. And it actually it works. I don't know if it actually would work in real life, but I figured it was just a neat idea to do in this. I was kind of reconsidering how I did it, because I figured, well, maybe the meerkats would be more comfortable in the netted enclosure, because like predators and stuff, and they might be able to climb out. But I don't think they would be able to climb out of either enclosure, because the walls on the other room are very high. And also just predator. I don't know. The predator's point is a decent thing to consider. I just didn't really think about it until the end, but I think it's honestly pretty fine because the meerkats do have other areas to go, and there's obviously still supervision taking place in a real zoo if this was the case, because you see lots of meerkat outdoor enclosures anyway. But yeah, I think that's overall my thought process with this. The netting enclosure was very inspired by the honey badger enclosure, or not the honey badger, was it? I guess it was. Although it's not too similar to it in terms of like actual style. I used the same color beams and stuff, and I used the general same idea of like using the little hinge pieces to make it a little bit more detailed. And I used the exact same pieces so it's still, the color looks the same, but it is a different shape. With the honey badger one, you have that more very sharp like triangle part where it comes straight out and then back in a little bit. With this one, it's more like a tent structure where it just comes up in the middle, which I really thought I did something like that. Maybe it looks more similar to the fennec fox enclosure if you watch that episode, but it still it's like a mixture, I guess, the same. The structure is more similar to the fennec fox enclosure, but the pieces are what I used from the honey badger enclosure. And with that, we are now 4 animals in to the desert house, and I was actually proud of myself to manage. I thought that when I always kind of like, at this point in the desert house, I'm kind of like about the interior. I know I feel like that's always kind of like the case. I always like building the outdoor areas more, and then the interior area is like because I think the thing is that I don't like when I'm building a separate enclosure, it's just solo one-off enclosure. I always worry about what the shelter is going to look like because that's so hard to find inspiration for. It's easy to come up with like a fence and stuff and like a layout for how the enclosure is going to look on the outside, but the shelter is where I struggle most because I don't really know how to like make it and like make it look good, fit in. With making one of these big houses, the only struggle is at the beginning where you're figuring out what the house is going to look like. And I think we did a pretty good job with like the actual desert house look with the brick. I'm really happy with that, with like the red brick. It's very nice. I mean, it really stands out. But other than that, you don't have to really worry about the outer design of the shelter, because then you just get to build all of the enclosures around it. But again, there is that little like thing at the end where I do have to consider what the house actually looks like on the inside. So I think we've done a pretty good job so far with like the honey badgers and fennec foxes. But with this one, I think you'll notice in the cinematic shots and even just kind of like the time lapse that I've actually started to build off a bit more in the house of like a little area for reptiles, which this is not done. It's not going to be done in the cinematic shots. It's not going to be done at the end of this video. But I made like a little island kind of in the middle because I didn't want to make this feel. Before I did the porcupine enclosure, it was looking more just like a big open room, which I was gonna be like, okay, well we could put planters in the middle, I guess, to make it look a bit more roomy. But I don't know, it wouldn't look that good. So then I reconsidered and I did tried to start making like some like reptile islands and like. Because I do want to consider also putting in smaller species here, because we do have a lot of desert house, like desert animals so far, but I also want to include really small ones like scorpions and spiders. So I think doing those little islands are perfect, and I am going to be doing more of them as we move on to other parts of the room, because we still have 2 more habitat animals to build for this house, which I think I did actually get a bit more of a clearer vision of what I want to do. So those 2 will probably be, maybe not the next enclosures or next episodes, but I definitely have a good idea of what I want those 2 to look like now, because I think I feel like we're now in the end game of actually like, it's a very clear path of what I want to do with the rest of the desert house. Because number 1, yeah, we had this, and then we have doing the other entrance, or I guess the exit of the house, which is it's going to look almost mirror identical to the front of the house, just, I don't know, maybe a bit like different signage and different planters, but other than that, it's going to look pretty much the same. The African spurred tortoise is going to be on the other side of this like back wall of the house, so when you exit and you go to the left, that's where the tortoises will be. And then on the side of the house we have the sandcat, and then on top of those 2 we just have a bunch of little reptiles and stuff to fit in, and like doing a bunch of detailing on the inside of the house. But other than that, I think I do have, like that's pretty set forward for me. I think I have a good idea of what I want everything to look like so far, so now it's just actually building it. There is some changes that's going to be coming. I think this is going to be something I'm going to talk about in a separate video, but in the coming months I won't be as preoccupied as building as I am currently, and that's just because of like how things are going to change and stuff. But I will not have nearly as much time to make videos in the coming months, which is unfortunate, because I really have a lot of ideas for the zoo and stuff and everything that we've been doing so far, and all the games and stuff. We have Jurassic World Evolution 3 coming, Prehistoric Kingdom, I want to do something for that. Even Fall Guys have kind of jumped in back on recently, which I've kind of finished that up, and you'll see a couple videos coming out on that. but I won't have nearly as much time to make videos and stuff in the coming months, which is unfortunate. But it's just something that I have to adapt to, and it has to happen. It's just something that needs to happen, and it's going to be a huge shift in, like, I'm going to try and make it seem like I never left, or I'm like, everything's normal, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll talk about this again. I want to make a separate video about this closer to the end of the month, talking about this, because I feel like it deserves to be, I feel like you guys you guys deserve to know this. I don't expect everyone who's subscribed to watch this video, so I want to make another one that is also focusing on it to see if I can get as many people to realize that as I can. But it is unfortunate, but that is why I want to start the Japan section. I really want to do the pagoda, and because that is the centerpiece of the Japan section. If you didn't hear me in the last video or in the tour video, I'm wanting to make a huge not huge, but a Japan section, or the world of Japan, which will have 4 species: the raccoon dog, the red-crowned crane, the macaque, and the red fox. And then in the middle of this, basically you will enter kind of like a little walled off, or a closed off area, which is going to feel like its own. It's almost kind of like if you go into, I don't know what it's called, it's like one of the new Universal stuff or whatever, the new one of the new attractions or whatever, where you go through like this giant portal, I guess, and you're teleported to like what it looks like a whole new world. And that's what I kind of want to emulate here on a lesser scale for a zoo. You'll go through this giant gateway, and then you'll be entered into a new looking area with some cherry blossoms and different colored foliage, and you'll see number one, the pagoda, a giant tall pagoda will be right in the middle, and then we'll have the 4 animals around that. So you'll go in a small loop around like some gardens, and you'll visit all the animals. I don't exactly know how it's going to look exactly, but I do have a general idea of what I want it to look like laid out. So I want to at least start that before the end of the month, because I know that it will be content will be produced a lot slower in further months. So that is unfortunate, but I do want to get started on that. This is why I'm not rushing to get the desert house done, because I know it's not going to be done. I could rush to get it done by the end of August, and I probably could. But on the same token, that would mean skipping the Japan section, which I don't really want to do that. So I would rather start on both things than end one and not get to touch any of what the other things are, if that makes sense. There are a couple other things in the Season 3 roadmap that I want to touch up on stuff. That's a further date, like the main wolf enclosure, just stuff that's finishing up South America, like the sloth house. There are a couple other animals I want to add to Africa, but those are last priority. Things like adding camels and donkeys, stuff like that to the Africa section. That's like very last minute stuff. I want to get the desert house done, the Japan section, and then finish South America. Those are the 3 main things I want to do. If we don't get to like the African animals, then that's fine. That will be just pushed to Season 4, which will have a more, actually maybe not a heavy focus on Africa. I think that's mostly going to be revolved around Asia, depending on how I like the Japan section, how much we can finish that. But yeah, I guess we should probably talk about the enclosure again here. So with the actual, we're going to start with like the porcupine areas here. The netted enclosure for this actually looks pretty decent. I inspired a lot off of the honey badger enclosure. You have basically foliage going all the way around it to make it more elusive. I try to do it more with this enclosure than I did with the honey badger enclosure, because I feel like the porcupines are a bit more shy. I found it funny that like at my local zoo, they put the porcupine is always in like this closed off tunnel sleeping when you go there. So they thought, okay, well no one's really interested in it because it's always sleeping. Why don't we put like so they put a new log that had a glass window in it that was all shiny and new and everything, and it looked really cool. But then they moved the tunnel back away from the stuff like where it usually likes to sleep. So they're really trying to push for it to sleep in the new log so people can actually see it sleeping. And the next time I went to the zoo, it's not in the log. It's still in the old one. And it was surprising because I think the time after that, this was like a few months ago, but then the time I went after that, probably the month or 2 after, I went back and they got rid of the log completely, the new log, and they moved the old one back, and they were just like, all right, fine, he's not moving, just put it back. So that's kind of funny. That's nice. That's my memory here. But with this enclosure, I tried to give it a bit more luxury. I know how much porcupines love like their beauty sleep in like the daytime, so I wanted to make sure that they have lots of room. I didn't want to just give them little like tunnels or a little like a log to sleep in. I gave them one smaller den on the outside, like a little cave on like their outdoor enclosure, but I also gave them a huge den on the inside, and it just also makes it look kind of different from the other two indoor areas. Maybe it's a bit more simple, but I still kind of like it like that. I didn't want to do. I actually kind of felt I kind of leaned back with the foliage in this one. There's less foliage, there's more rocks and more broken trees for like the meerkats to climb on. There's a couple platforms I tried to put in just for like, I know the meerkats like to like stand up and like peer out and stuff, so that's gonna be kind of cute. And I didn't want to take that away from them. I tried to make it the best of both worlds. The thing that I really liked about this enclosure, one of the small little details, is the custom tunnels. I used the gate fixture pieces from the America's pack, and I used that as like a template or a border, like a guideline, and then I placed wooden planks around the perimeter of those, and then just made it longer, and then we had a really cool tunnel. So I placed those. I think I made two different ones. I made one with the gate fixture piece in it, so it looks like a lot more like heavy duty, and then I made one that's just a circle of wooden planks, so it looks a lot more rough. And I used the smaller one for the meerkats because that makes sense, and the bigger one for the porcupines, and also just in the indoor area. Actually, no, I didn't use them in the indoor area. I forgot about that. But I used the bigger ones for the porcupines, smaller ones for the meerkats, and that way, hopefully, maybe the porcupines will be able to go in and like relax and sleep in there if they want to. I was going to talk about something else. I can't remember what that was though. I tried to use a lot of information boards here and there. I used like obviously a couple around each window, but I also did like a cool like banner for the desert house. It's kind of advertising that it's this way if you're in case you're coming from the other way. I don't know how you would even get there, but actually I guess you could come around the area, I guess, before even going in it. But yeah, used a lot of education boards. I also tried to do like a cool kind of like memorial thing. Something that always reminds me of like the old brick houses, like big brick houses like this, is like when they have like the London Zoo or like really old zoos. So I thought of giving this building a bit of a backstory, so I put like a lion statue. This is mainly because we don't have porcupine or meerkat statues, or at least I didn't have them because I didn't do like the reward statue, like I didn't play the franchise or the career modes or the challenge modes, I think it was. So I don't have the extra statues, but because we don't have those, I put a lion in place, and I tried to make a kind of like an info board explaining how this building used to be a cat house back in like 100 years ago, when the zoo was really old and not having enough money to supply itself. So that the house was used for cats or like lions, which was, I don't know, it was a bit disappointing because I know that a lot of zoos back then weren't really taken like very seriously. Welfare was not on the biggest of people's minds, so I tried to give that a bit of a backstory with that little like garden area with the lion, and like explaining the backstory of the desert house and what it used to be. But now we've relocated lions to another enclosure in the zoo, which has not been built yet, but it will be. We will be including lions, of course. You cannot have a zoo without lions, and this will probably be somewhere in like a future season. I don't know. Again, each season will probably have a different continental focus. But yeah, I thought getting back to the point, I thought that was just a nice thing to include, like a little planter and stuff. I was debating. I knew I had to add something there, because I knew that we would have the ramp and the stairs of the exit of the house going down straight down, so then we would need like a planter or something beside it, and I just thought that was a nice thing to include there. I think I cut off the planters, the planter around it. Like I put a planter around that little thing so you can walk fully around it, the memorial thing, but then I stopped with the actual exit of the building, and that will be something we'll build down the line with like we'll build the exit, and we'll also probably build the tortoise enclosure as well as that, because that's right next to each other. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. We've talked about the enclosure, we've talked about a bit of future plans. I think again the next episode of this series, which will be probably coming out at the further end of this month, will definitely probably be that Japan first episode. I want to start the Japan section before I don't have time to, so I really hope that comes out. That's like the one. I have a lot of videos planned for this month because I really want to give everybody a bit of everything this month. I've abandoned a couple series which I do feel bad about. We haven't made a Fall Guys video in forever, and I know that a lot of people don't watch those, but I still want to make them. I haven't made a Prehistoric Kingdom video in forever, which I really feel bad about, because the one that we did do a few months ago, people really enjoyed, so I really feel bad about doing that. And I did have an enclosure almost done and then I just kind of like forgot about it. So I'm gonna try and make a new one, and I'm gonna try and make it for one of the new animals, the new species coming out. So I'm gonna try and make that. I'm gonna hold off things Jurassic World Evolution related because I really just want to wait till the new game comes out because it's just not a priority to me. I can make news videos about it and stuff, but we already have lots of videos going over it, and I probably don't know as much as those people do. So I'm just more in like the hype train for this, for like just seeing all the news come out at once. Not rushing to make videos about it. It's probably fine. But what I do want to do this month, one more ranking video, which will hopefully be out the end of this month. Another one of these episodes, the OakWood episodes. Another Prehistoric Kingdom episode. Like I said, I'll be doing a channel update kind of thing, really short video, just explaining how I won't have as much time in the future months. Which is basically, if you picked up on that, like what you just heard me say, that I won't be available that much in the coming months, then you really don't need to watch that video because there's not a lot more that I'm going to talk about in that future video. But anyway, channel update, Prehistoric Kingdom, OakWood Zoo, ranking, and that's it. I think the other thing I already did this earlier this month was I released the 3 60-second reviews of the last 3 packs. And I do believe that those are the last 3 packs. The last pack was the Asian pack. I'm not going to get too much into it. I'm not going to make a video on it because we just don't know if it is the next pack or the last pack or whatever. But I do know that people, at least on TikTok where I was uploading them, were really requesting them to be uploaded. Or were really requesting for the last 3 reviews, so I wanted to put an end to that. I uploaded those. I've finished off the next Fall Guys season. I know I made like 5 maps at the beginning of the year, or 6 maps, and then I just completely forgot about it, so I've made the 2 last maps for that. But I'm just trying to wrap up stuff that we've left open throughout this year specifically, and also just saying a bit like a not farewell, but just giving one last really good like bang to each of these series before we kind of die down a bit on them. They're not going away forever. None of them are going away forever, but I will not be able to make nearly as much content as I have been currently. Like, no, I don't know. I really don't know what the future holds, but I know that it's not going to be as much content as we're doing currently. So that is a bit unfortunate, but it's just the way it has to be. Anyway, I'm enough glumming and chumming. That is pretty much it for me. All I have to say for this enclosure and this episode. I probably talked for a bit too long, but I hope you guys have enjoyed. Again, cinematic shots at the end, of course. I will let the speed build play out for just a couple more seconds, or just a couple more minutes. Sorry. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the subscribe button. By now, I would hope we have gotten to 3,000 subscribers. If we haven't, we are very close to 3,000 subscribers, so that is a huge milestone, and I am very happy that we've ended off on that at the end of the summer. So thank you all very much for that. I really do appreciate all of you, everything that you guys that you guys positively say in the comments and stuff. I read all of it, and it is very, very heartwarming, and it's very, very nice to me. It is very, very appreciative. I thought we can still make videos, and I still you guys will still appreciate them. So that is pretty very, very nice. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the video. Bye guys.